Hello, welcome to Scrap Time. My name's Christine, and this video is part of the Inky background series, and we are talking about color texture paste and clear texture paste. So we're going to start with the gold. So this particular one is Deco Foil Metallix Gel. It comes in 6 different colors, but it's still like a texture paste. You can call them embossing paste, texture pastes, molding paste, modeling paste. They all work similarly and do similar things. This one's gold. You can also get it with other companies in a variety of colors. I'll just open it up for now and show you. You can see it's a very thick paste. I'm going to show you what it does and then I'm going to apply it on something. So I have used gold. I typically use it on top of your backgrounds. So after you've done your inking or that, you want it as a little sort of added texture or embellishment. In this case, it's just a really fine little lines, as if it was some writing, but it just adds that little extra to the card or your project. Here, I used it up the side because of the way this background was going with the inks here. I just put it up the side to add to the design. Whereas on this one, I used it more as texture. And you can use it over top of basically anything. This card's been gessoed. It has texture already in it. It will sit on top of acrylic paints, inks, whatever you have. And you can see that even though they were tiny little dots, it's thick and it holds its shape, which is really cool. This one, I just added a bit here, and even though you can start to see now we have so many different textures going on here that it's really starting to look very interesting, and that little bit just adds a little more interest to the background. The same with this, it's very similar. I added it down here, and I think that gold with the color in the background looks really great together. And on this one, again, I just added texture to the background. Now I just want to talk a little about the stencils I've used. Some of them are still available and other ones aren't. So in the supply list under the video, I've added in some stencils that might give you a similar feeling, since some of the stencils I used are no longer available. But if you'd like this style, you may like the other ones. So I didn't use all the stencils I mentioned. I just added them in case you wanted to get some stencils like that. So I am going to, this is one of the stencils, unfortunately, I don't think it's available any longer. But so that's the other thing too, is if there's a stencil out there that you like, buy it, because these you can use forever, but stencils, there's so many designs constantly coming that if it won't be around forever. So when you see it, just pick it up. So I really like the little postage thing here. So here I already had like this was with the medium, we did a resist technique there, but I can still add this over top. And with stencils, typically you can see through them. Mine is not as see-through because I've used it so many times and there's layers of paint. So that also comes to like, do you wash your stencils? When I'm using a texture paste, I try to rinse them because I don't want the paste to fill in the gaps, because once it dries, if there was any extra here, it's going to fill it in and I might not be able to clean it. When I'm just using paints, I don't bother, I just let it be because the paint won't transfer to the next project. But if you use them with like inks, you may want to wipe them off because your ink will transfer to your next project. So as I said before, it's very thick. You can see there. You pick it up with your palette knife. Now when I'm doing a larger size, I like to use there's a big palette knife thing that Therm offers, which is great if you're doing a background because you won't get a lot of lines in it. But when I'm doing something like this that's small, then I just use a regular palette knife. And as I'm putting it on, I'm also scraping it off because I don't want to waste that extra. And then we peel this off, and ta-da! We have a very cool design. And then you just want to put it aside to dry. And that's it. That's easy, and you can get this really cool look. You just need some stencils and some texture paste. So that is the gold. And next I'm going to move on and talk about clear paste. So I'm going to show you some samples. So clear paste is just that it's clear, and then when you add inks over it, it will pop up. So you can see here I have my design. Now if you watched the previous video where we did the white, and it was very bright, right? And so you had to either leave it white or cover it up. With clear, it's a lot more forgiving. So if you just want the texture, you can leave it, or you can add your inks and paints over top of it. This one is a little harder, it's with inks. And if you want to make it pop, you have to go in with a contrasting color. So I went in with aged mahogany over the pink just to try and contrast it so that pink pops up. Whereas over here, it's harder to see because the background was darker, but I didn't want to go in with like browns or blacks at this point. This one, I decided I didn't want to ink it. You can sort of see the lines, and the reason why it's not completely clear is because I probably used the paste maybe on this one where I picked up some of that color and it got transferred to my next project. Because the paste will, if you're using it on like an ink, it will reactivate the ink and you'll pick up some of that color. Same thing here. So this was a watercolor background. So you can see some of the oranges in the paste here. But again, I didn't want to go over this. I just wanted to add a subtle tone-on-tone texture to my background. So now I'm on the ones I'm going to show you. I'm not going to show you how to use the paste. You use it the exact same way as gold. But I'm going to show you two ways how to make it pop. So there's already paste on both of these. And this one was an ink background. This is a painted background. So I'm going to do the inked background first. So I'm going to bring in my distress inks. And because this was dipped, I'm pretty sure, yeah, the colors aren't at the full effect. So I'm going to go in with the same sort of colors that I used in the background. So I'm going to start with picked raspberry. Now you may wonder, what's the difference between a clear embossing paste and say if we use gel medium? Well, the thing is, gel medium will dry flat and the clear texture paste will give you that raised feel to it, which is really cool. So they both will cover up whatever you had there in terms of like sealing it, but one, it will be flat and one will be raised. I'm now going in with festive berries. Slowly some of our texture is starting to appear because, as I said, you really have to go in with some contrast colors. So you can see down here we have an 8. We have this butterfly starting to come through. Sometimes I have to feel like, oh, okay, it's just in here to see, because it is hard to see, especially when you have like a crazy background. So once you do that, if I want to make it pop a little more, I can get my paper towel with a little water and just rub it over, because the ink does cover it a little, so you want to just rub off some of the ink. And you can sort of see now that that's starting to pop through. So now I will show you with this one with some paint. because we've painted the background, it has gesso, it has the different paints on it. I'm just trying to decide which way it goes. I think it goes this way. We're going to go back in with more of our inks. Do this. I'm going to spray it down. And there you can start to see where it's resisting it. So you can start to see a bit of the resist there. I'm going to give it a light dry and then rub it over a little. So you can really see it with the yellow, because I went basically with the same color of blue there. It's sort of blended, but I can punch it up maybe with a bit of yellow. So when I'm revealing my clear over acrylic, I like to use something like the inks, because they'll sort of just flow over and the water will help resist it. If you're going to go over with a heavier bodied paint, you want to just do a light touch and maybe just touch sort of the top of it. I have a bit of paint here. We can give it a try. Let me just dry this. So this is Dina's paint, which is a heavy body. I might just put a bit of water beside it. So you can see that it's sort of, when you go with a paint, sometimes it will cover it. So what we can do, as long as it's wet, we can wipe a bit off. Give it a spritz. And then you can try and get the paint to sit in between the areas, but wipe it off the top. So if you have the inks or the high flows of that, I would recommend that, because you can add some water and it will sit and reveal some of that texture. Whereas when you're using the acrylic paints, it's harder not to just cover it up to reveal the texture. So that is our clear and our gold or colored embossing pastes. And so embossing pastes, as I said, are great to add texture. Some can be subtle texture, some can be obvious texture to your projects, and it just adds yet another layer to give your project more depth. Thanks for watching. Be sure to give our video a thumbs up and subscribe to Scrap Time videos on YouTube. And for more Inky backgrounds, be sure to check out the Inky background playlist.